Okay, so we are back after a couple weeks. I was away away for a week, and so we had a little bit of a break in between sessions. Um, but yeah, so we're going to dive into some coaching for this evening, and just starting off, with the opportunity of some grounding. Is that something that you'd like to do tonight? Is just do some grounding into the session, or do you feel like we're good, ready to get started?
I think it'll be good to do some grounding. It's always good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you like to lead or would you like me to lead?
No, you lead.
Okay, sounds
Yeah.
good. All right. Well, welcome into the space. Uh, just give yourself the opportunity to take a few deep breaths. Just breath in, breath out, breathing in, breath out. One more time, just allow that breath to come in. Deep breath, feel it in your chest all the way down to your stomach. Allow that breath to come out. Allow yourself to come into this space, to allow the spaciousness of the room around you, the energy just to be felt in the air. And that here in this space tonight, that this is about you. This is about your opportunity to explore whatever just feels like the place for you to look, to dive into, to create into. And that any thoughts or happenings of the day can just float away, that you can be present, spacious here in this room together. For us both be connected to spirit, to the universe, to that universal guidance that can be here in this space with us, just supporting us, being with us, being with us on this journey of transformation, possibility, of understanding more of who you are as an individual. All of it is welcome here. Let's take one more deep breath in. Allow that breath to come out with a whoosh. Allow that breath to come out. When you're ready, feel free to share anything that it is. Just feel free to share what it is that you want to explore in our session this evening.
So the thing I want to explore is about, one is following through and commitment and the importance of it. Well, not importance, but like what piece am I missing that um, that some of the commitments I made I'm not keeping up with, or um, or more like it's not I'm not keeping up with it. It's more like when it's there front and center, I go for it. But then if it fades away, if it other things crowd it out, then it gets missed. And so finding that balance a little bit, maybe. Yeah. Or how to make sure that commitments I'm making are not getting crowded out by other things. That's one thing. And the other thing that I was sharing right before the session is, or before the recording, is that through the course of this coaching, we have, we've talked about, I've said, yes, this is something I'd like to do, a practice I would like to take on. And you've helped me sort of hone those, and I stuck with them for some time, but then they fell off. And what's the question? The question is, yeah, how to recommit to those, or like how to make sure that that I stick with them.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think both are related, but yeah, it's the same theme. Yes.
Mhm. Yeah, it's it's interesting because if what I'm present to is that if we look at sort of the arc of the conversations that we've had so far on this journey, a lot of them have sort of been based around commitment and
Yeah.
developing this skill set, which is, I would just say it's fitting. It's the place that you've been exploring, the muscle that you've been building on this journey so far. And um and from what you've shared here in this session so far about, like, exploring this deeper, what commitments mean to you, and how to sort of realign yourself when those commitments drop. Like, it's thanks for bringing it. Thanks for being willing to continually come back and revisit this conversation. What do you think is at the heart of this? Like, why explore this today?
Why explore this today? So last night when you asked me, you know, how do you feel about not being able to work on the courses this month and next month? I was like, I was upset about, when I thought about that, and um, so what I did was, like, before I replied to you, I was upset about it, and I was upset. uh, I was angry at myself for not keeping the commitments, and then in that sort of um, frustration slash anger, or like that um, sort of heavy energy, I was like, okay, I'm going to text everybody about the February class, whoever I had from the previous time. And so, like, late last night, I sent a bunch of texts. And then at some point I had this realization that, oh, with this energy, it's not going to work. Right? I mean, that's not the energy that even though I'm sending a text which is very neutral language and all that, but the space that I'm sending it from is not going to bring, like, that's not where I want to be. It's not going to bring the results, right? And so that's what happened this morning. Like, a couple of people said, oh, those dates don't work. The rest of the people didn't reply. So it was kind of like, the moment I recognized that, oh, this is not going to work with this energy, that's where sort of this question came up again, that instead of being frustrated about commitments, not keeping commitments, and then, taking action from that space of anger / frustration, whatever. What I would like to do is to have more poise and more ease about the commitments, about following through with the commitments, about keeping the commitments, like more consciousness around all of that.
Okay. So that's the place that you want to be in terms of your commitments, is just bringing more ease and poise.
Yes.
What do you mean by poise?
Well, I guess centeredness is the word. Poise is the external sort of.
Okay.
Yeah.
So more ease and centeredness in this.
Like,
yeah, go. Yeah, for sure.
The combination of being dynamic in the action, but centered in the mind, like centered from within. It's in the past I've confused ease with laziness, and
Mm-hmm.
that's not what I want. It's what I want is dynamism in the action, but ease in the mind and centeredness in the mind.
Okay. So what I hear, the focus of our conversation tonight then is how to create more of this centeredness and ease in your commitments, in the way of, like, the being that you're bringing to your
Yes.
commitments.
Yes.
Anything that you'd add to that?
No, I think that's good. Yeah.
Okay. So that's where you want to be, is in this place, more ease, more, you said dynamism in the action, more centeredness. What's preventing that from happening right now?
What is preventing that from happening right now? I think there's like one part of me is saying, oh, maybe I have too many commitments. That, at least in my mind, that are commitments. But on the other side, I think the thought that follows that is that no, not really. Like maybe there's some resistance to some of them. That's a different story. But it's not that they're beyond my capacity. Yeah. A part of me is saying that there is, like, the commitments are not obvious and clear. That like a part of me actually loves to be in the space of, you don't know what the next moment is going to bring. We'll see what comes up and just flow with it and dance with it. And then there's another part of me which says, like, but because of that, what is happening is that all the commitments are not obvious and clear in front of me. And so some of them get missed. And when they get missed, then that's where the frustration cycle starts. That's where the lack of ease comes, and this like I get angry at myself. Um, yeah,
Okay. Do you have an example of a commitment that's not clear?
it's not clear. It's that it's not front and center in my awareness. Uh, so, for example, I think this happened. Whatever. Like one of the commitments that I have is I'm learning to play the guitar. So one of the commitments is to play guitar, do the practice at least 15 minutes a day, right? And this happened on Monday, where I'm at the end of the day. I'm really tired. I haven't practiced. I'm like, okay, I'm going to practice now, but I'm really, really tired. I'm like, okay, I'll skip it today, right? And the funny thing is, like, this was playing on my mind. I was getting upset with myself about, that, oh, I've come to the end of the day and I'm so tired. I just want to sleep. And my son is, and we've had this conversation with my son also. And my son is like, yeah, you didn't practice because it's not a priority for you. And I'm like, no, it is a priority for me, or at least I'm working on making it a priority for me. And that made me like that comment from him. It was very innocuous comment because I've said the same thing to him, so he just repeated it back at a later time. But that triggered me even more. It's like, no, so that's an example. I think.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, like so today, same thing happened again, or similar thing happened. That so one of my commitments is to meditate in the evening, like so like meditate twice a day. The morning is no problem. I get up and I meditate. It's the evening one which, uh, like today there were back to back like 5 things in a row, and there was no space for that meditation to happen. Like like just for me to sit down and close my eyes and meditate.
Hmm. Okay. So let me just sort of check myself here. So it sounds like one of the things, well, you tell me, like, because what I hear in that is that whether it's meditation or playing guitar, these are things that you want to have commitments to, but
Hmm.
there's a time factor. Time is getting in the way of actually being able to fill on these commitments.
Yes. Uh, yes. So huh. I had just another thought. So, like for example, on the guitar one, I'm learning with a group, and what we decided is we're going to meet every day at a fixed time. So after that Monday that I didn't practice, since then I've been practicing every day with the group, and
Hmm.
so that's like it's on my calendar. It's with some other people where I've made the commitment. I'm showing up. It's happening for all of us, and all of us are in a similar boat where like, okay, it's on our calendar. We'll do it together. Um, the meditation is something that I need to do just on my own, and it's sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't. Uh, so I think we touched upon this in an earlier conversation, but the same theme is coming back again. Is that when the commitment is with somebody else, when it is, you know, like okay, we're together at a time and place that we made this commitment, then it's easier to follow through and it's
Hmm.
easier to do it. But when it comes time to doing something that I need to do for myself or I need to do it alone, that's where things start to become a little shaky.
Right. So now this is an interesting sort of just crossroads right here, because and maybe you can kind of connect the dots between the two, but the initial request was, hey, how do I bring more centeredness and ease to my commitments? And what you're speaking to here now could be connected, but maybe it's different, is how do you create commitments? Like, how do you stay committed to the things that you're taking on yourself versus when you do it with a group? That may have
Yes.
been super confusing how I like explain those two, but I mean,
No, but I get what you're saying.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
cool.
Um, yeah. So I think what I'm noticing in my life is it's the second thing that you said is uh, more of a um, challenge, because with commitments that I make with others, I I follow through. I'm happy about doing them. I'm, you know, uh, yeah, yes. And the things that I take on for myself, where I'm responsible for it and there's no other person connected directly, that's where things fall apart. I think that's, yeah,
Okay,
yeah, that's more of it, I think.
great. So thanks for getting to that place. So does that feel like the thing for us to look at is,
Yeah.
will you tell me, if we spent a lot rest of our conversation exploring, like, what is it that you'd actually want to explore?
Yeah, I think that's it. That's the point we need to be, uh, that I would like to explore.
Cool. So what, like, so I'll put it back to you. Like, what I hear is, developing this ability to be just as strong in your commitments to self as you would be in a group.
Yes. Group or another individual. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything you'd add to that? Anything that we're missing in that exploration?
I said another individual, but I'm noticing that the commitments that I'm making to my wife or my son also I'm missing out on. But if it's somebody outside the household, outside the family, those I'm keeping.
Okay.
So maybe the demarcation is not as black and white as I initially put it, but
Well, it sounds like the commitments outside of the home, like, there's sort of like an expectation there, right? You've committed yourself to a good, as simple as it is, like, you've committed yourself to a daily practice of showing up for guitar
mhm.
versus, in the home. I imagine there's different challenges around that.
Yeah, yeah, yes.
Okay. So what would you want that to look like?
What would I want it to look like? I think in an ideal world, I I would stand true to my word. Like whether I'm making that commitment to myself or to somebody else, whether it's in the house or outside. Um, yeah,
Okay. And is there a specific area of your life that we could look at here? Is there a specific place that you're noticing where you want to strengthen these commitments?
So, I mean, like if we, it's commitments to myself is the theme, and I think if I do that, then everything else will also follow from it. Um, and then in terms of specific area, mm, yeah, okay, let's look at the whole, maybe the job search scenario.
Okay.
And yeah,
So job search, anything else?
actually, I don't know if job search is the right example, because the reason I'm saying is because um, like in the last 2 or 3 days, I have like before that I was just like I was saying that, oh, this week I'm just chilling out, I'll start next week, and so this week I started, and since I started I said, okay, I will start to maintain a spreadsheet of what are the openings I'm seeing, where I'm applying, where the current status is, and I started that. And maybe the missing, I don't know if it's a missing piece, but like I haven't committed to myself saying, oh, I will do number of whatever things each day, or whatever. Like I haven't made the plan yet.
Hmm.
uh, so I don't know if that's a good example to go by, but okay.
Well, maybe just sit with it for a second. I mean, it sounds like, yes, there might not be like total clarity or even the steps established there, but like, is there anything else like in your life where you feel like these commitments to yourself are faltering?
I mean, one example is the commitments that we've talked about through these coaching conversations.
Hmm.
Right? There are a few of them that I said, okay, I will do this. Some of them I'm continuing to do, some of them I'm not. So
Hmm.
I think that's a place to look.
Okay. So I'm going to go out on a limb here, and like, it
Yeah.
sounds like with regards to your business.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay. Um, and given we've got about 30 minutes or so, like, where do you want to be at the end of this conversation? Where would you like to walk away with?
Mm. I think one thing I would like to walk away with is clarity on what is making me tick when I'm keeping the commitments, and what
Hmm.
is getting in the way when I'm not following through. And then based on that awareness, maybe the steps will emerge, or the path will emerge uh, on keeping more commitments than letting them fall through.
Okay. Yeah, and sounds like a great place. I mean, and so really, which one do you want to look at? Which one feels like the one to look at first? The ability to stay with the commitments, or where you might be sort of like falling off the path?
Uh, Maybe the choice is not clear to me, because I thought those two were related. But um, like I thought that am if I can recognize the patterns in myself where I am sticking versus I'm not sticking to the commitments, then by recognizing those patterns, I can engineer my way to do more of the sticking with the commitments than following through.
Okay.
Because you put the question which one, so I'm not sure if, like, in my mind those were the same, but is it?
Well, I mean,
Or
so I can kind of see where you're looking in both perspectives, because, like, yeah, I would say the energy of follow through is different than the energy of falling off, right? Like, it's sort of two separate things. But what I heard you just share right here is that, like, well, if I look at the energy of, like, what's allowing me to follow through, like, I'm going to be able to create more of that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Perfect. So sounds good to me. So let's speak to that. Like, what are you noticing about yourself that's able to have you follow through on these commitments?
This is an interesting thought. I don't know which one comes first, but what I'm noticing is that the ones that I am following through, I recognize that I'm following through, and I want to continue to follow through. And the ones which are falling apart, when I recognize that it's falling apart, and if I start to, like, say, put myself down about it, then I have actually more aversion to following through. And yeah, that's the point where I want to just give up. And I think what I am what I'm realizing there is that if I do not follow through, and I recognize that I have not followed through, tongue twister there. At that moment, if I can be a little kind to myself and acknowledge that, okay, I did not follow through, and then from that space of acknowledgement and recognition, make a plan or decide the next step to come back sort of on the track, I will have much more possibility and much more drive to actually follow through. Yeah. So what makes it worse is that I don't follow through, then I beat myself up about not following through, and then it's a downward spiral from there.
Mm-hmm.
And if I make that shift, that, oh, okay, I didn't follow through, recognize it from a space of, just like objectively just recognize it and allow myself that space and grace. And then just from that calm space, see, okay, what do I need to do to get back on track? I think that's a much more powerful way of being than beating myself up about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, great awareness and sort of seeing both patterns play out. It's almost like I can't even think of the word, so I'll just kind of say what I was going to say. Like, well, it's like almost like a positive reinforcement in the one way, and a negative reinforcement in the other way, right? Like,
Yes.
those two patterns are sort of playing out. And I'm
Yes.
curious, have you tried something like this before, where when you've been in that sort of negative cycle that by being kind to yourself, being generous to yourself, has that shifted this? Like, have you tried something like this in the past?
Um, like no obvious example is coming to my mind at the moment. So I would say, like, I don't think I've made that connection or been conscious about it. Like, I mean, yes, there have been times in the past where, like, oh, I was supposed to do this thing today, it didn't get done. Let me figure out, can I do it tomorrow? So those things, yeah. Um, but I haven't looked at it so deeply, like the way I just described it before. That has been just like, oh yeah, this I was supposed to do this, I didn't get done. Let me do it tomorrow, kind of thing. Yeah.
Right. So there's a kindness in that, like, oh, hey, this thing didn't get done. Instead of beating myself up over it, like in this moment, I can take it on tomorrow, that type of thing. Like that's sort of the energy that you've brought to it in the past.
So that the phrase that you used, instead of beating myself up, like that didn't even occur. Like, okay, it didn't get done. Okay, like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if uh, like that was more of a like one thought after the other, that oh, it didn't get done, let me do it tomorrow, rather than more like the way you put it, as a decision that oh, it didn't get done, instead of beating myself up, let me take a different path. It was not like a conscious choice kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
They just followed like that. Um,
Yeah, and I might have put that in this space as well. But I want to I'm going to slow down for a second and just put it to you, like, you came across this discovery that, oh, like maybe the path here for me is to just bring like more graciousness, more kindness to those times where there's a commitment that I'm not following through on. And like, if you are to do that, what do you think will occur from that place?
so I think a few things will happen. One is that my own energy would be sustained. Like, it takes a lot of energy to beat yourself up, and you're beating yourself up,
Mm-hmm.
and and it's so that's one part of it. Um, like, I'll be able to look at things more consciously and clearly, but why something didn't get done. Um, like, I'll be able to be more honest about it to myself. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, like, and then I think and that will result in me being more happy about the commitments I'm keeping, rather than being unhappy about the ones I'm not keeping. I think that's the shift that'll happen. Yeah.
Okay. So be more conscious, more clear, more happy.
Yeah. It's funny, I keep telling others, be kind to yourself and don't be so harsh on yourself. And I'm discovering that, oh, that's the lesson I need to learn the most.
Mm.
Yeah.
Hmm. So if we check in right here in terms of the coaching request that we came to about like, hey, you know, making commitments to yourself and your family, you know, as strong as say the commitments to others outside of the home, where are we at right now, like in the conversation?
So it feels like we started there, but we ended up, or at the moment we are at a different place in terms of being gracious about the commitments. And what I'm wondering is there a way to uh, yeah, is there a way to be more conscious at the time of making the commitment so that uh, uh, I, yeah, I mean, where I was going with it, I don't know if it's still the question, but is that, or at the time of making the commitment, is there something I can do differently um, that will that honors all the previously made commitments? I think that's the, yeah, like, or if I'm making a commitment, is at that moment can I be more conscious about if I'm saying yes to this, will it cause something else to fall off? Or, and if it will, then like at least I can be conscious about it. And yeah.
Great question. um what do you think is at the heart of that question?
What is at the heart of that question? I think a part of it is about uh, like I have this habit of being too quick to say yes and not checking in with myself before I say yes. Um, yeah, I think that's
Hmm. Yeah, and I think it's, you know, I'll just put it in because I would say it's fair to bring in of like, yeah, and I would say like that's this exact thing has probably occurred in our coaching together so far, where you've made a commitment, you know, you've committed yourself to something, and then you know, it's sort of been a dance, right? In a sense. Um, before I put too much in, you know, I'll bring it back to like really what's the impact of this? What is the impact of you being too quick to say yes with your commitments?
I think that's directly related to where we started, right? That not following through on commitments.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
And then how do you feel from that? You make a commitment and then you don't follow through. Where does that
It's
leave you?
it's very disempowering.
Hmm.
Um, Yeah.
Yeah, it's disempowering. And so this is why, it's a very interesting question that you ask. And I would put it to you that the question in itself is kind of a fix, right? Like, hey, how do I adapt to, like, how do I just adjust my saying yes in the moment so as that I don't put myself in a situation where I make commitments and then I don't follow through on it and then I feel disempowered. So that question, it's a great question. And um, I'll put it to you. Like, what do you feel like is the path forward in this, given what's occurred?
I think it needs two things. Um, One is, so one is to, instead of saying yes right away, just ask for time, that, okay,
Mm,
I will get back to you. And then the second aspect is to put something in place where I look at all the things I've said, I'll get back to you, and then assess that, and really, like, allow myself the time to check in, feel that, look at existing commitments, and then go from there. Yeah, I think that's the thing. Um, yeah.
great. So, sounds like you've discovered some places to practice.
Yes.
Anything you want to practice now?
Um, I'm not sure.
Okay. Um, that's like, oh, I could just throw something at you, but
Do it.
really,
Do it. Do it.
sure. I mean, in this practice of taking that time for yourself, the only thing I can think of off the top of my head really is, I mean, there's probably a few places to look in the conversation, but like, if you were asked to make a commitment in terms of the enrollments for the meditation practice, like, how do can you stand for needing that time right now, if that's what you see is
Mm.
needed? That might be one place to look.
Yeah. Yes. So we said that, okay, I'll work on a program in February that'll have 10 enrollments,
Hmm.
and I think, and what I want to do is to sit with that and see if that's the commitment I want to make. And yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. um Are there any other places in your life right now where you feel rushed to make a commitment that perhaps you might need some time around?
Um, Yeah, I think there's some of them are around, you know, uh, like my wife is asking me for help with some of her schoolwork, and it's been hard for me to fit that in with all the other things going on, like taking my son to his class and school and whatnot. And uh, yeah, I think that's another area.
Okay. So how does that go, in terms of that conversation?
The way it goes is like, oh, I have this deadline. I need to finish it by then. When can you help me? And the
Hmm.
deadline is tomorrow evening. So I'm trying to figure out, okay, where do I fit this in? And but at least, so what happened was, she wanted that help today, and I was able to tell her, look, today, I have all of these other commitments that I've already made. I don't have space for it. And so I think, so where it ended up was, I said that tomorrow after I drop our son to school, I'll come back and I'll help her.
Hmm.
And the challenge there usually is that I can see in her expressions and her demeanor that if her work, like until I sit down and do it, she'll be tense about it. She'll be like, anxious about it. And that plays on me as well. And I'm like, based on this conversation that we've had before, like in this session today, I'm thinking that her anxiety is probably tied to in the past where I said I'll do something and I didn't
Hmm.
follow through. And maybe, and this is very important for her because there's a deadline and all that. So that's what's creating anxiety for her. That I'm guessing that maybe at some place she's not sure that, oh, if he's saying he'll do it, will he actually do it or not? Um, so that's another conversation to have.
So what, whether it's a conversation or a practice, like what's there for you?
Hmm. What's there for me is, um, it's both, right? It's both like a conversation to be had with her about what is, like, where is that anxiety coming from? Like, to checking that assumption, that is her anxiety about me failing to follow through, or is it about something else? So that's the conversation to be had. And then the practice for myself is what we said before, is like, oh, instead of saying yes right away, looking at, okay, can I actually do it? Do I actually want to do it?
Okay.
Um,
Sounds good. So that practice, it can apply both to the enrollment for your program in February, but also for commitments that you're making in your marriage. I imagine other places as well.
yeah, yeah.
Um, are you open to one more practice?
Can I
Here,
hear about it first?
sure. Yeah, nice work. Um, One of the things that I heard, and you can check me on it, is that I imagine that when others are feeling tension and pressure, maybe even anxiety, that like it sounds like there might be like a response from you to like fix it.
Yeah, yeah, yep.
Yeah. And so the practice there is just to notice that, notice the impact that it's having on you. Does it make you respond right away or feel pressured to respond? So that's really it, is just it's a noticing practice for now of just like, hey, what is this driving up in me?
Hmm.
How does that sound?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that sounds good. I was, um, like I was just thinking about the past times when it has happened, and either it drives the response of, oh, how can I calm this situation down,
Mm-hmm.
or how can I just walk away from it
Mm-hmm.
instead of. And what I'm imagining is that by just noticing, the shift that I would like to happen is that I stay without getting reactive about it.
Yeah.
And that dynamic shows up in definitely in the marriage, but also in at work also sometimes. I think it has shown up in the past. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, it's a place to practice, just
Yeah.
to be in that noticing. And like you said, um, just noticing, like just allowing yourself to just have that moment, give yourself that breath and be like, oh, do I have to respond
Mm.
right now to this? Can I create even that spaciousness as well here?
Yes.
Um, Excellent. We got about 4 minutes or so. Uh, Anything else that you have questions around or you feel like you need support around?
No, I think this is good. I think we ended up in a good place.
Okay. Um, what are you taking away from our session today?
What am I taking away? So one is, I think the most important is to allow myself the space to either say yes or no before I jump into saying yes. Uh, that's the main thing.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I'm taking away is the conversation that we had about the upward spiral and the downward spiral.
Mm,
Is that when that graciousness comes, that, oh yeah, okay, this didn't happen today, but let me see how I can get back. Um, or yeah, even noticing that, yeah, I said I will do this and I did it, that creates that upward spiral. But when I get into the space of beating myself up about something that didn't happen, that I didn't follow through, then that creates a downward spiral, which uh, makes it even harder to follow through.
mm-hmm.
Or actually, the other thing that happened is what we said about, or then I act from that space of anger and frustration, and the results don't come, or even if they come, they're not pleasant. So,
Mm-hmm.
or they're not pleasant, but they're not like they leave a sour taste. So, like yeah,
Great awarenesses,
yeah.
just on both sides. There's such power in both of those. Anything missing, disempowering, or incomplete?
No, I think it's been great.
Okay.
Yeah.
So does this feel like a good place for us to complete?
Yes.
Excellent. Really quick, anything you'd like to be acknowledged for in this conversation today?
No.
Just never. I never want to be acknowledged. um, may I acknowledge you from what I've seen?
Yes.
Yeah. Um, I really want to acknowledge you for, here you go. I want to acknowledge you for your commitment, both to this conversation and for your commitments that you're making in life. I know that like this has been a place that um, you've had some great just progress with, and there's been some struggles in this as well. And the reason for the acknowledgement here is that you're willing to still look, you're willing to like open the door and see both the ways that you're showing up and the ways that maybe there's still some places for growth. That requires commitment in itself. That requires the strength and the willingness to like see that like, hey, this is a place that I can continue to grow in. So thanks for being willing to have this conversation. And I really want to acknowledge you for your awareness that, you know, you've come to this place where you're seeing like, hey, there's an impact for me just being a yes to things without looking at what else is happening in my life. That like you're willing to give yourself that spaciousness, that kindness, that generosity right here in this place of like of commitment, that um that the life that you want to create, the things that you're up to, is going to require you to have that spaciousness, to have the option to just be a yes or a no, and the power that comes from that. So great work in again being willing to dive deeper in this conversation and being a stand for what you're creating in your life.
Thank you. I wanted to say, like, the first thing that you said, that yeah, I'm committed to looking at this issue with commitment is a commitment in itself. I mean, you didn't say it that way, but I'm just saying that was something that was like that was a different light bulb in, going off in my head. That, oh yeah, it's yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing. It truly is, right? I mean, there's no surprise that in our conversations, both in the coaching container and outside of the coaching container, there's been some stuff that's come up, right? You know, in this process. And that's exactly what I'm speaking to, is like that willingness to look, to be in the conversation. Um, you know, that's like authenticity right there, you know, so beautiful work. Absolutely.